Welcome, everybody. Prior to getting started, I would like to honor our 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush, who passed away over the weekend, with a moment of silence. So if you would, please bow your heads. Thank you. I'll call this meeting to order. Showing roll that all council members are present and there is a quorum. Moving quickly to the city administrator update, Mr. Probst.
Yeah, nothing specifically, but I just want to note it has been an amazingly busy year. All of our departments have done a great job on so many different projects that are going to prove very impactful in 2019. A lot of them are in process or under construction right now, but this city is really going to change for the better with a lot of their hard work and what you all have approved over the past year. So thank you for all that. And then I'd like to give an additional thanks to the Streets and Transportation Department and Electric Department for what they did at Childers Park in the 11th hour to put together what seemed like the impossible, which was running electricity in an area that had none and standing up some pretty impressive light displays out there. And we had a pretty successful event for the first time, so thank you, Sadie, and the volunteers that helped make that come together. It was a great event. Look forward to doing it again next year.
Thank you. Moving to the Central Services update, Mr. Bailey.
And I'll piggyback a little bit on what Logan just said. If you go on our website and check out Facebook, the newsletter that came out December 1st actually has 2 pages of those projects and lists highlighted of what was accomplished in 2018. So it's a fairly extensive list that probably took us longer to think them all up than it did to actually maybe accomplish them. But I think we got everything on there, and I'm sure we're missing a few. But other than that, Central Services, purchasing was actually down for the month of November because we had holidays. We had fewer P-card transactions, POs. And then the one big thing I just kind of wanted to hit on was, and just to recognize them, Gary Barnes and Danny Farmer are my 2 main guys on my grounds crew that cut our different facilities, different locations that contractors don't hit. And in 15 days in November, where we had rainy days, cold days, those 2 individuals by themselves picked up almost 2,500 pounds of trash in our cemeteries and parks. So I just kind of wanted to give them kudos because they're never going to be right here in front talking and whatnot, but it's people like that that I think make this city a much better place. So I just wanted to kind of point that out and recognize them tonight. And any questions? I don't have a lot.
The new email letter that we're sending out saves us how much per month?
Saves us $12,000 a quarter
Okay.
if we go to the digital format of the newsletter.
Okay. And in our total landscaping plan for City Hall,
I mean, what were we, $34,000?
so paid for with that one little change. I
Correct.
appreciate you creating the value.
Oh, yeah.
Makes a big difference to us.
Try to do it on everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Moving into committee information, Mr. Bradley, would you lead us off with finance, please?
I will. We only have a couple of items, actually one the report and one other thing, but I'll ask Ms. Thompson if she'll present.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. You have the financial status report as of October 2018 in front of you. Everything is flowing through as it should as of the end of October. Over on page 6 and 7 of the report, I have updated the capital or CIP capital funding for the utilities as was requested by some of you, and it's more detailed. What I've done, as you'll see on page 7, broken out every project by year and what is estimated to be expensed by year. Obviously, 2018 has actual and then estimated expenses, and then broken out by the estimated expense for each project from 2019 through 2023. So that is a change in the report to kind of give you a little bit more detail of those projects that you have approved. As you can see midway down, I know it's kind of hard to see, one of the items that Brian will be bringing to you tonight is under electric, the automated switching. The budgeted cost was $150,000 that was approved. The estimated cost, these numbers were as of October, so they're not updated, but as of what he'll present tonight, but we're $59,500 that will be expensed by the end of this year, and then $90,500 that will actually be spent in 2019. Just to kind of give you an indication of what is brought to you by departments for the utilities. These are those projects, and as they're updated each month, I'll update the spreadsheet for you. Other things going on in the finance department, we are right smack dab in the middle of software implementation. We are going live with financials this week on our new financial software. I want to thank my staff for helping with that. It has been very streamlined and very seamless so far. I don't want to jinx us, but they've put a lot of hours in, and it's been kind of stressful, but we are doing that, and we will be going live with our new payroll system next week. We have been doing utility billing training over the last couple of weeks, and we will continue that the 1st of January and go live still. We're slated for that in February. I've also finished the budget document that is before you. That'll be later on in the agenda. And then we've also received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from GFOA. This is the third and final award from GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, for the year of 2017 reporting. So I'm proud of that honor that we have gotten, and this is the 16th year in a row that the City of Monroe has received that award. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to help answer.
I want to further congratulate Ms. Thompson and the whole finance department for once again getting that certificate of achievement and excellence. That's quite an accomplishment and something that everybody in the city should be proud of. I do have one question on your report. On the thing you just talked about as far as the capital is concerned, the $9.8 million that's scheduled here to be spent in 2019, how is that reflected in the budget for 2019?
This is the capital budget for all years, so this is,
So the report you did here, where you show the 9.8, that is the amount we have in the capital budget?
no, if you'll look at page 6, this shows what the actual balances will be at the end of those years. The dark green line on the bottom, if you'll look at the 2018, our expected balance is $11,577,000 at the end of 2018. Our expected balance at the end of 2019 would be $4,337,000. And this, I will say this is very conservative based on what the TAP fees and our CIP transfers are based on revenues. It is very conservative. Obviously, those are based on revenues and what the TAP fees are during the year.
Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Thompson on her report? Then that's all we have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Congratulations. Mr. Garrett, Airport, please.
Chris Bailey.
Real quick on fuel sales, they were obviously down in November, like we kind of stated. Rain, weather, kind of puts a damper on that literally. The apron project that was well ahead of schedule is now just a little bit ahead of schedule because of the same reason. But if you've been by the airport, they actually milled all of the existing asphalt that was on site, pretty much got it out today. And then hopefully, let's knock on wood that we have a couple of days of 45-degree or warmer weather to where they can maybe get out there and actually pave and put the new asphalt down. The good news is the way they've done it, we shouldn't have any interruption in fuel cell ability, that you can still actually get to the fuel tank because they've kept everything out of the way, everything's smooth, so you can still drive a plane to it. And then the other thing that I wanted to cover, it kind of jumps onto the CIP trail too, is the capital improvement projects for the airport were submitted by November 30th to the DOT. They have to be on file with the DOT by that date and the FAA. For 2019, 2020, how it rolls into the state fiscal year, we actually have requested $1.7 million in projects, of which the city would only be responsible for about an $86,000 match. And this would be, hopefully, should we receive them all, be for the rehabilitation of the runways, the 18B obstruction survey for our LPV approach, which is a big notch in our belt if we can get that one to bringing in larger traffic, larger planes. And then our required DBE update status. So, fingers crossed, we did good this past year of getting funds because we have so much already ahead of schedule and ready that I feel fairly confident that we'll receive these too. But you never know.
What's the DBE status?
The DBE is a disadvantaged business enterprise. It's an update you have to do every, I think,
Sorry, I thought
5
it was
years.
some hip
Yeah.
airport lingo.
Yeah,
So,
good old acronym.
Gotcha.
Any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Move into Public Works, Mr. Dickinson.
Carry on the solid waste report, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Got a couple of things. Got an update on the Georgia EPD's review process. They released a document back in October, kind of giving us a guideline of what they're going to be looking for during the review process. They also have announced a review date schedule, and we are scheduled to be reviewed on November the 1st, 2020. We are to submit an application 6 to 18 months prior to the review. If we don't, they can suspend the operation. So we do have time, and the projects that we have listed are tied to the review process, with some of the requirements that we're going to have to do. Other than that, the wave 2 is the age of the facility. That's how they're starting. We're between 17 and 23 years old, and that put us on the phase 2 level. So they're starting with the oldest facilities first and all the way up to the new. Just want to make sure that we're in compliance. The other thing I did post the holiday schedule for Christmas and New Year's Day. It's going to be a challenge, but we're going to do it. We're going to double up on 2 of the days, Wednesday and Thursday. Collection's going to be done. We won't have any collections on Monday and Tuesday, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We are going to extend the transfer station hours to 5 o'clock during that week. Also on New Year's Day, we're going to extend it to 5 o'clock. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
All right, no questions. Mr. Still, the Streets and Transportation report.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Just highlighting a few areas of stuff that we got going on right now. We're in the middle of some winter maintenance on our right-of-ways as well as within our streets, making sure we stay on top of potholes best we can, doing some patch work when we can. We're in the middle of running our leaf truck. It's been out a week and a half. And as you know, when you drove here today, you've probably seen a pile of them out. With the weather that's come in, they fell at a very rapid rate. But those guys are out running that truck every day, as well as the maintenance that we're doing on our right-of-way, keeping stuff clean in that area. On the back side of the report, I included this month a report from some software that we use from Street Saver. I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at it or not. It basically goes over the PCI and the inventory of our roadways. I wanted to share that leading into the next item on the agenda. Just going over this report real quick. The current PCI, which stands for Pavement Condition Index, and it's basically a score of how well our roadways are maintained. It's on a scale of 0 to 100. The Street Saver software, these people manage, they're based out of California, but they manage over 450,000 lane miles all over the world of asphalt roadways. The average score or average PCI of a city or municipality our size is a 61. We come in at a 65 on this report, but that doesn't include roughly the 2 miles of higher grades, the stuff that we did this year that's gonna be reset to a 100 on the scale. So that number will fluctuate probably back up to the 66, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but if you look at that scale over the 5 years period of time, we're fluctuating, coming down about a 1 point per year, which there's really nothing wrong with that. That's still a really good road for the most part of the city. Remaining service life, that section right there is 20.2. What that is if we only did general maintenance to our complete infrastructure, we would have roughly 20 years of service life left on our streets. That can be reset by doing major projects, which we do every year. This goes to extend the life of our roadways. And then as you go on through, you can see that the PCI by functional class, how that breaks down. We're basically a collector of residential street. The collector streets being the main thoroughfares, Madison, Alcova, Breedlove, McDaniel. The residential speaks for itself. Those two are basically broke down there, and that's where you see the bulk of our average PCI come from. The bottom type, the surface type, that AC over AC is an overlaid street that was an asphalt base with an asphalt layer on top of that. The blue section just refers to a newer street that has a rock base, asphalt topping. The slender section of purple, that's asphalt over concrete or just concrete, which is a very small sample section throughout the city. Other than that, I'll be glad to take any questions on this report or anything that we got going on currently.
I have one question. You know the intersection of South Madison and Broad, I'm sorry, West Spring? Okay. There is a horrible hole, but I know that is that the access to the water?
That's the storm drain.
Is there any way we could make that less of a hole when you hit it? I mean, you hit it every time you turn, and
Would that be we'd have to contact DOT, but I don't know what they would do, but that being on
that Main Street.
state right away right there, we'd have to go through them to do any type of work.
It just seems to get worse.
It's, when they went in and redone that intersection, that's when that problem was developed. It is.
Could we call their attention to it and just see what they, okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, the next item, Mr. Still, are you going to explain this LMIG Alcovey Street?
Yes, sir. The LMIG program is something that comes from the state. That's how we funded our paving throughout the last couple of years. It was, I think, LARP before it was LMIG. It's just money given to municipalities to use for improvements in their roadways. It does require a 30% match. This year, the total is $207,793.50. 30% of that is $47,952.35. That's what we would be responsible for through SPLOST. And myself and staff are recommending that we use that to pave 1.9 miles on Alcovey Street. We spoke about that earlier in the year at our budget meetings, but we chose a big street this year. The last 2 years, we've done a lot of small streets, and we really need to make headway out there. There's several sections on that street that if we don't maintain this coming up year, it's gonna cost twice as much to fix it the following year. And it is one of the heaviest traveled streets in the city, so we're recommending to do that. That work will be contracted out. The overlay and striping will be contracted out. We will do the patching in-house. So we're recommending to do Alcovey Street, and it's 1.9 miles overlay and striping through the LMIG fund this year, or for 2019.
All right, so to the Public Works Committee, I need a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the 2019 LMIG as presented.
Motion to approve by Mr. Little. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr.
Forgive me, Mr.
Adcock.
Chair, but could I ask a question?
Sure. Discussion?
Is that 1.9 million, miles rather, 1.9, is that from Broad Street to city limits? That's all.
All right. Any other questions, discussion? All right, call the question. All in favor, state aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. We'll be recommending that to the full council.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Mr. Still, Mr. Smith, I appreciate it. I know you'll do a lot of work, and it's the time of year that it's getting a little chilly, a little rainy, and I also appreciate the work, Jeremiah, that you do for our Christmas parade every year. I know that Sadie and Leanne lean on you quite a bit. Thank you. Moving to utilities, Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the electric and telecom monthly report. Mr. Thompson.
This month, we got Wendy's and Yorpie, both with permanent power, and they both used our telecommunications services, which was great. Wendy's is moving along pretty nicely, and that was a very smooth project, and so was Yorpie. We have completed the decoration of downtown, but I'm going to do a final drive-through tonight. We've had a lot of the little lights fail in the Garland. We've had some issues with the lighting on South Broad, the LED lights. We had 2 fail that we just have not been able to figure out, and we used some spare parts and fixed them, and we've got a Hall of Fame representative coming in to check that out. So if you see anything tonight that I missed, just let me know tomorrow, and we'll try to have all those lights working perfectly before the parade. In telecom, we started the CMTS upgrades a week or so ago that y'all approved. We're phasing this in, doing some upgrades to the existing CMTS. We're doing the rest of them tonight. We've had great results. We're going to do it about 2 a.m. So that's out on all our social media. We'll shut the whole system down about 2 a.m. for about 2.5 hours while we add some cards and increase the capacity. It has increased the capacity to some of the nodes, well, all the ones we've done so far, from 608 up to 1.2 gig. When we get the other CMTS installed, we will have that same 1.2 gig to each port, but we'll have less modems per port. So we'll have less people using the same resource. It's been challenging so far, but we've got a process laid out. And Mike and his guys are doing a great job. We are preparing for the Christmas parade also. We will be televising it as we always do. We'll start setting up Thursday morning right there on the corner. And as long as it doesn't rain, which it doesn't look like it's going to, we'll get all that set up and have it on TV for the elderly and some people that just can't get out in that weather. And that's all I have, Mr. Little.
What time will Broad Street be closed? 5:30.
We will have some graphic on the screen up until the parade actually gets to the intersection at Broad. We may start a little earlier, but normally we wait, instead of just having the people that are sitting on the stage, just having to talk for 20 minutes from the time it takes the parade to get from Hardee's to downtown. That's really the only complaint I've had about our broadcast over the past couple of years, is it really doesn't start till about 6:20. Well, it takes 20 minutes for the parade to get up there. So that's the big thing I want to get out.
Speaking of that, just an update, we're going to close City Hall at 4 p.m. that day to allow traffic to kind of clear out, so that will provide more parking here for the parade. So
Good idea.
that announcement, 4 p.m., we'll close City Hall.
Thank you, Brian. It looks like you have an item for our consideration to purchase the
I do.
5 Viper ST automated switches.
Yes, sir, Mr. Little. We ordered 3 Viper STs for around City Hall several months ago, and they're shipping next Tuesday. And we will have those in and get those installed. These 5 were for Station 2, which is down here below the library, and the first phase of protection of the system. Y'all have noticed in the past, and we have an issue, say, out on Walker Drive or down Ammons Bridge, if we have a power outage, it will go all the way back to the station. And it'll take the red lights out downtown. It'll take out a section of downtown. So what we're doing is we're putting these in the first point to protect the downtown area. And then as we move forward with this project, we will slowly leapfrog out and sectionalize the city into small sections to where only we can isolate that section as being the only section of outage, trying to get the number of outages down to a small piece of 100 or so homes if we possibly can in a major catastrophe. It's worked great with the manual switches we have in place, but it takes us between 2 and 4 hours, depending on how traffic is and how tied up my team is, to get that switching done. This will put in the automation to that switching, and we'll use the existing manual switches back in smaller and smaller pieces in the system. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
What's the total cost?
This one is $90,705, and it is a sole source with Power Connections. I have the sole source letters from the two manufacturers in place. Same as the other two, they're controlled by the Schweitzer controllers that we use to control our substation, which we will, in place, we will be able, once they're in place, we'll be able to work with MEAG to really make all this stuff work together, make the controls in the substation work with the controls in the system, and then eventually, once we all get trained up, we'll be able to make automated switching from this office.
This was a part of the 2018 capital.
Yes, sir.
Is Power Connections and G&W Electric the same company?
Power Connections is the manufacturer's rep for the state of Georgia, Florida, and I believe Tennessee for the G&W and for, I'm having a hard time with their name. Let me roll down a little bit and get their name. The two companies providing the stuff, but G&W is the manufacturer of the switch.
Who do we actually contract with?
The other one is Schweitzer Engineering. We do with Power Connections.
And do they contract with those two?
Yes.
Are there any other questions? Is there a motion?
Chairman, I will make the motion that we recommend to the full council the purchase of this 5 Viper from Power Connections in an amount of $90,705.
Motion by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend that to full council. Mr. Thompson, you seem to have another item here, out-of-state travel.
Yes, sir. This is approval for out-of-state travel for Justin Milligan, Mike McGuire, and myself to go over and meet with True Vista, that I misspelled terribly in this paperwork, in Chester, South Carolina, to meet with them about their IP/QAM television offering that they have in place. It's going to be sometime in January. I'm not exactly sure when. We're still working with the True Vista staff to get that date locked down. I want their engineers to be able to meet with our engineers, and for me to be able to meet with their management to make sure we get all the information we can in one trip. That will cost us $485. That is the hotel room and the per diem for my staff.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve the out-of-state travel as presented.
Motion by Mr. Wayne Adcock, second by Mr. Larry Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend that to full council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Middlebrooks, a monthly water, sewer, gas, and storm report.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Just a couple items. One, if you notice coming in tonight, we've got a couple of the gas lanterns installed out here at the flagpole last week. There's more going on this building before we move to the next one, but I did want to make you aware that those 4 are installed. The wastewater, or the water treatment plant remodel's coming along. The electricians have finished up. We'll finish plumbing this week. And then hopefully to start some type of landscaping out front to try to make the building look a lot nicer than it does. And also, the alleyway was poured last week. from the livery stable out to Spring Street. So that's completed. And then also, not sure if any of you made it by last Thursday night for our, first night we had our fire pit / marshmallow cooker out. Had it out there on Court Street. So we, this is something that our employees built. We're gonna use it for public awareness and, stuff for natural gas. We can show everybody how much better gas is than electric. But it'll be out again. I think Sadie may talk about it later, but I think the next 2 Thursday nights, I think, we'll have it back downtown. So if you hadn't seen it, come by and take a look at it. It's pretty impressive.
For roasting marshmallows, I agree.
And keeping you warm. Any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
The next item on the utility agenda is the wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation engineering services agreement. Is there comments by staff?
Yes, sir. So just to set this up, of course, we've invited Carl Hofstetter with Hofstetter and Associates to present a little bit more about this item. But you'll remember over 2 years ago, probably really longer than my tenure with the city, over 3 years ago, I think you guys have been engaged with Hofstetter and Associates to get the ball rolling on a wastewater treatment plant overhaul. Originally, we kind of started, at least since I've been here, talking about an entirely new plant, which would be in the $30 to $50 million range, right?
And growing.
And growing by the day, it seems. So from there, we backed up and said, what can we do more reasonably? So Rodney and I have been working together a lot to try to fine tune what our needs are, to at least get us set up for the future for a good while at a reasonable price tag that we can all live with. And then a couple years ago, like I said, we engaged with Hofstetter and Associates to go ahead and get that ball rolling. So here we are tonight. We've chewed on it. It's before us, and I'll let Carl take it from here to present it.
Thank you, Logan. Mayor and Council, appreciate y'all inviting us. This is John Fry, our #1 engineer and local genius that I brought up in case there were questions too hard for me. Nathan, you know that we've actually been doing this for a lot longer than 2 years. We've been kicking this around for about 5 years. David, you know that too, Wayne. But I want to go over very briefly. Logan said, Carl, be brief. I don't have time for you to go into nitrification and denitrification and all that kind of good stuff. But the timeline that we're going to follow is we'll design this in 6 months. We'll submit it to EPD. They're supposed to review it in 30 days, and good luck with that. But then it'll take approximately 12 months or less to build it. So hopefully within 18 months we'll be functioning, ready to go. The items that we're going to do is the same ones that we talked about down in the retreat, and I'm not going to go over them in detail, but they are to take down the existing building there that's deteriorated, put in a sludge belt press, convert the digesters from anaerobic to aerobic, put in a grit removal, which is a vortex system, and install new automatic bar screens. I think the total cost for that, estimated, because we're going to bid it out, is $7,651,800 flat. So what will happen is we'll design it, and then we'll put it out for bid, and then lowest responsible bidder will bid it. All the items, as I said before, all the items that we're going to put in, all the components are going to be good for the 5 million gallon day upgrade. So in other words, when and if you decide to change your treatment plant from 3.2 to 3.4 to 5, all these components will be used. Nothing will be torn out. And that's what Logan and Rodney and I, we came up with. What are the items that we can do right now that's not $50 million that we can do that will last, for the projected 20, 30 years. And these are the items that we came up with. I have given y'all the the report that we have written, and it's very, very obviously similar to the one that you've seen before. So Nathan, with that in mind, I'm going to be quiet and see if y'all have any questions.
I'd like to clarify the amount, because you said the 7.6, whatever, estimated amount. How can that vary?
The reason that can vary is if we're just estimating what contractor's going to bid. So I don't know what, in this climate right now, Larry, projects can vary widely. We bid two treatment plants. One of them came on in the money, and one of them, it was estimated at 13 million, came in 17 million. Okay? So we're revising that, which we will do here. Everybody is busy. These contractors that build wastewater treatments are specialized. This is not like just a rubber tired backhoe and something like that. So these guys, you know, they can't get what they want, but they understand that everybody's busy. So that's the only variable is the economy.
I guess the question I have, and maybe it's for Logan, this is written up to say that the total project amount to not exceed 7,651,800. So is that?
I can make
One-
that.
one for-
Let me answer that. if
Okay,
you don't
go
mind.
for it.
This is just like every other ones that we do. This is what we want to do. If it comes in substantially over the money, then we'll make the modifications it takes to bring it in the money. And your question to them is, why didn't you do that to the very beginning? Well, the components that we have in here are the ones that we want, the ones that I think we need to do, but they're not the only ones in the world that will work. Okay? So, and if it comes in, let's say it comes in $500,000 more, I'll come in and say, look, it's $500,000 more, which is, it's just going to be, like $3,000 a month more, and I think we need to do it. Okay, if we come in $5 million over that, well, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, so we're going to look after the money because that's an important thing. And believe you me, that man sitting right over there, he is a hawk on that kind of thing. And we have beat this thing to death for just about as long as we can. So, and I think he's ready to, when that primary went down again, I think he called me up and said, we're ready to roll on this.
When the bids come in, it could be less.
It could be less, yes. I would not count on that, however. That hasn't been the trend ever since 2015. When we got out of that recession, I mean, all the pent-up stuff has come, and then prices are going up.
We're going ahead and being precautious and applying for a little bit more with GFA, though. So we decided $8 million to GFA that we can apply for. So something comes in a little bit higher than expected, certain component that we know we want, and we bring that back before you, we still have the capacity to borrow with GFA.
Now, with the GFA loan, Larry, you only, if we go for $8 million, it comes in at 7.8, you only borrow 7.8. Right. Okay. So there's a lot of, like if you're doing floating bonds or you're doing something like that, I mean, when you float a bond for $8 million, you float the bond for $8 million, or if you go to USDA or that kind of funding source, so.
But you feel strongly we'll be good for 20 to 30 years.
Yes, these components right here these are state of the art, Now, the art will be different 10 or 15
Right.
years from now, but these will do the trick. And these are the ones that Rodney has vetted out, and I and John have vetted out to be the best for the city of Monroe. Most cost-effective means to do it that will work and will not break down every year.
Yeah.
Or he'll kill me, so I mean, you just go ahead and say that, but anyway.
Thank you, Carl. And I will ask Rodney, you have looked over it, it's your recommendation also? Okay.
Yes, we actually, going back to the equipment, I think we visited 12 or 13 plants
Yeah.
total. So every piece of equipment that we picked, I spoke with the managers, engineers, with our engineer. Maintenance guys met with their maintenance guys. My operators met with their operators. So we did a very thorough job in making sure that equipment was what we wanted and was something that was going to be as maintenance-friendly as possible, because that's something we don't have. So, yeah, it's...
Any other questions? Staff has written their recommendation. For the motion, if we make the motion, and I will make the motion, that the wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation project engineering and construction services be awarded to Hofstadter and Associates for the total project amount not to exceed $7,651,800, contingent upon approval of the GFA funding and being ready to construct within 6 months of council approval. That would be my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Carl doesn't count. It carries on the committee, and it will be recommended to full council.
Thank you. I would like to make one other statement. Hofstadter Associates was awarded a Engineering Excellence Award for the entire state of Georgia for our booster pump station that we connected to Macon Water Authority with the city of Forsyth, kind of like what we're doing at Loganville. So we're very proud of that award. It's voted on by our fellow engineers. And Paul, I'll be available for autographs after the council meeting. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that in. Thank y'all very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Congratulations, Carl.
Mayor, that's all that we have for utilities.
Sir. Thank you. Congratulations, Carl.
Congratulations on that.
I'll get that to you. Y'all don't mind, I'm gonna leave.
Have a safe trip. Y'all be careful. Moving forward to public safety, Mr. Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a couple of items on the agenda, or 3 items on the agenda. The first one, the monthly fire report. Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Adcock. Overall, monthly fire report is about standard. We do know that, or we have seen definitely coming into our winter months, a definite increase on residential structure fires in the city, which is, I don't want to say it's natural, but it's predictable coming into our winter months and now going into our holidays. So definitely want to remind everyone to keep fire safety in mind over the next month during the holiday months. We did complete all of our live fire drills this month. They were very successful, and our new training facility worked absolutely perfectly. We have one more night drill coming up on the 13th. That will be the last one for the year. The only other thing I would like to brag about would be the Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training came by and did an audit about 2 weeks ago. I wasn't able to put it into our packet for this meeting, but I did want to mention it. We passed with absolute flying reviews with Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training. They were thrilled at everything we had, all of our paperwork, everything was in order, and just a really awesome job that our training officer, Lieutenant Mike Toe, did. You know you did good when Standards and Training tells you how well you did. You know you did really, really good when other fire departments call you and say, tell us what you're doing so we can get it right. So big kudos to Lieutenant Mike Toe and the work he's done in our training department. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Hearing none, thanks, Bill. The monthly police report, Mr. Watts.
Thank you, sir. Month of October, we did respond to 3,121 calls. That is our lowest calls for service throughout the year. And those calls are itemized out that you guys have the list to look at. October was a pretty challenging month for us, especially for me, stepping in as the interim chief position. We did have 3 major events that I felt like our organization handled very swiftly and very professionally, and I'm thankful for that, the turnout of those. our agency participated in over 615 hours of training, and we also participated in 16 different community events. What I do want to talk about here for just a second is, this time of year is when our property crimes do go up. We just did a video the other day with Paul Mullins, kind of going over that and just letting everybody know to be vigilant this time of year, make sure that they, keep their vehicles locked, make sure they don't leave things in their vehicles out and open like their presents or gifts or anything. If they are, lock them in their trunk of their vehicles. And if, going out shopping, make sure you shop in pairs, things of that such. And then, lastly, I'll just talk about, what's coming up this Thursday, inviting everybody out to our annual Christmas parade. I think it gets bigger every year, but we're thankful for that, good turnout. We met with Jeremiah and them today and kind of going over some last-minute planning to make sure that we're able to handle the traffic flow and the amount of people that's going to be coming into the city to take part of that. And I'll answer any questions if anybody should have any.
Thanks, RV. The next item on the agenda is the intergovernmental agreement for animal control cases. You gonna handle that, Logan?
Yes, sir. Before you is an intergovernmental agreement with Walton County, and we heard in magistrate court for all animal control cases rather than our municipal court. Very few cases throughout the year would actually land in our municipal court for animal control. So we're essentially trying to streamline the process since Walton County is our provider of animal control services. And any fine monies that come from this will go back to Walton County to help pay for these services.
So we need a motion from the committee to recommend the adoption of the resolution. Is that in order?
It is a intergovernmental agreement without the, no resolution needed.
Well, right.
Yes, sir.
So do we need a motion from the committee?
Yes, sir.
To recommend it to full council?
Correct.
So do I have a motion?
I'll offer that motion.
Motion by Ms. Malcolm. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Crawford. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes our public safety's agenda this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Moving to planning and code, Ms. Malcolm.
Mr. Stone and Mr. Kelly, I think they have a lot to report. Busy department right now.
It really is. Unfortunately, October is kind of next verse, same song. But there are a lot of other things we can talk about. One thing I did want to mention about the October report that you have in front of you is that we did have 3 businesses reported as closed, but for the first time ever, that's just a reflection of ownership changes. So we didn't have any businesses close their license out in October. So that was a nice thing to see, and it's a trend. I think we're getting more and more applications. Did want to mention to you that business license applications have been coming in at a pretty high clip, and payments in advance are exceeding past payments in advance. It's a little bit difficult with the change in the software, but they're handling it admirably. There was an alcohol license that was kind of contentious here recently. Those people have come in and withdrawn their application. They've decided to stake their claim in another territory and just close up shop, I believe, at the end of the year, and settle their differences with their landlord just by parting company. So anything we did to accommodate that, or to accomplish that, we're proud of that. One thing I didn't know if anybody knew about, and it just happened that they came in asking about the assembly permit, but in the interest of multiculturalism and diversity, there was a group, they're an ethnic minority in China and Southeast Asia. They're the Miao people, and there's a group of people sub to them, that's the Hmongs, and there's a fairly large group of them around here. So they celebrated their New Year. I'm not sure if it was the end of October or in November, but I just wanted to mention it since it was fairly recent. They had that at the county fairgrounds, and I actually happened to drive by while they were doing that. Seemed to be having a wonderful time. and lots of good smelling food wafting through the air. So that was nice. Anyhow, if you have any questions about the report you have in front of you, I'll be glad to answer them, or anything else that's going on in the city.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Lou?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Croswick, you want to join us up here?
A number of the things in my report have been mentioned, but I'll just point out that Small Business Saturday and Black Friday is the beginning of the retail shopping season. And so far, reports from downtown retailers is that the weekend as a whole was better than last year. Friday is picking up as bigger sales in downtown than Saturday, where it used to be Saturday was bigger. So that's an interesting shift. I think it just establishes that downtown is more of a shopping destination than it has been in past years. One other thing to mention, we already talked about the lights in Childress Park. The Kids Parade was the first time we've done that. It was amazing. We probably had about 200 people for that parade, really great turnout. So much fun to put that together. The Public Works crews were amazing, and we're only going to grow it from there. So we're excited about future years. Also want to mention that the Young Game Changers program, the people that have been accepted into the program to participate in that team are being notified now, and they'll make the official announcement of the team members mid-December. And they will begin, their first time in Monroe will be January 31st and February 1st. You all will be notified of events for that, just to kind of meet that team, and that'll be their introduction to the community and the beginning of their year-long participation in planning for our community. Along with the city website update, MonroeDowntown.com is also being updated. We were just second in kind of getting our stuff together, so they'll be rolling out a revised downtown website in keeping with the design of the city website. Hopefully we'll have that early next year. You can see our upcoming events. We have Santa, the Grinch, the fire pit will be back out. It's amazing that the gas department put together. And also, I didn't put it on here, but want to mention it, December 15th is the bicentennial celebration at the courthouse. They'll have carriage rides that night, and it looks like they're trying to put together fireworks as well. So that should be an interesting, fun evening downtown. And Christmas parade this Thursday. We're excited. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Croswick. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Sadie, get some rest. I think you're going to be busy the next couple of weeks. And it's very exciting. Thank you. Moving to items for discussion, we have a public hearing rezone at 215 Breedlove. Mr. Kelly,
Actually, I'll speak to this.
Mr. Stone.
For your consideration, Mayor and the council, we have 3 actions here that we've discussed. The first one is at 215 Breedlove Drive. It's a rezoning from R1, B3, and M1 to all B3. Currently, there's about a total of 4.3 acres. The vast majority of it is a split between M1 and B3. The R1 is about 1.8 acres. In order to make it all uniform and transitional behind where it's located right now, we're requesting, the applicant's requesting, and we're suggesting it be all B3 for that type of business. Any questions in regarding this action?
Yeah, so I'd just like to know, do you have any thoughts on the pros and cons of any reason that you know of that it should not be done? I mean, that's a better question. Or any pros and cons from your review of it?
Well, currently, in the future land use plan, it is zoned for residential. However, it's a transitional area with the plaza that's there right now, and there are some physical constraints such as topography and vegetation, and there's a creek with a wetland that has a pretty wide buffer between that and the R1 area. So with its current applicant and us looking at being business-friendly, we were looking at the impacts. Shouldn't have any negative impacts for that type of facility.
Good, thank you.
Are there any more questions regarding this action?
Mr. Stone, I think you told me earlier that the majority of what is currently R1 is going to be a parking or a driveway to access the use of the existing M1 and B3 that's there.
If the applicant goes forward with what you see on his proposal, you can see the majority of the buildings do reside in M1 current and B3, which we want to make uniform all B3, which would be consistent with the zoning. The R1 component does have a portion of some storage buildings located on it, but the majority of it's a buffer to drive around, so that's why he's requesting it all be B1, B3.
And he would have to conform to the overlay for our commercial areas, right?
That's correct.
Our new overlay. Thank you.
And all of this is on the same side of the creek.
Yes.
Any other questions? Go ahead and move to 1600 East Church, Mr. Stone.
We're really excited about the potential for this development currently. They're requesting a rezoning. Currently, it was zoned as a PCD. Hang on a second, let me get on down here. Excuse me. Yes, currently, it's 1600 East Church Street, and it's getting requested from a PCD, which is a commercial development, back to a planned residential development. As you know, if you know the location, all the roads and streets are already placed in construction and currently operational for the next developer to come and finish. They desire to reconfigure it from the end portion that was commercial office to planned residential. The amenities that they want to include would come with green space, a clubhouse, pool, tennis court, basketball court, and a playground. The development itself, minimum would be 1,600 square foot homes, sidewalk, rear alleyway entry. If you look at it, it's 122 units prescribed, but if you look at the overall acreage, you're looking at 2.8 homes per acre. I think this would be very positive for the city as far as future development and housing. It's in line with our current residential planning for the zoning map, and at this time, if you have any questions, we'll entertain.
So the side setbacks between houses is 4 feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Between houses or to the lot line?
To the lot line.
Well, yeah.
So 8.
But 4 feet. But that conforms to the PRD.
Yes, it does.
Same question I asked earlier. Is there anything negative about this we need to be aware of?
No, I think it's actually a positive. It gets to where we can have this developed instead of being laid fallow from the defunct predecessor that developed the property.
My only concern is that when we approved this, we had not approved the development that's underway with 135 homes, I believe. And, you know, just the impact to Church Street in that corridor is going to be substantial.
Yeah, you know, that's why we're going to be very careful moving forward. We've had other interest in property on Church Street that wanted to make even more dense applications. At this time, we're going to land on the zoning of R1 where possible, so that we do not overdevelop that road. As you know, the right-of-way in Church Street is very limited, and, you know, ultimately, we got to control that growth, and there's areas that we might be able to look at turning lanes, but the majority of Church Street as you come into town does not have that ability.
The other thing to note is that this was a PCD before.
Right.
So,
We're going lesser in a sense.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's just adding the amenities package essentially. So really, somebody could have come and just built what they wanted to anyway. But to Daryl's point, we have been taking some very hard looks at that corridor until we can figure out a new way of interconnectivity of future roadways between Church Street and Hammond and Spring and all that. We're going to have to be very careful about future zoning considerations or rezoning considerations in that area. But this right here is not a wholesale change,
Right.
other than the commercial to residential component in front.
And I don't think that even today that the commercial component fits that area. So I definitely agree with the fact that this would be a better use. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Moving to the certificate of appropriateness, Mr. Stone at 600 South Broad.
Yes, this is, actually, I'd like Mr. Kelly to present. He has a lot more detail regarding this action. He's recently met with the applicant, and if he would at this time come forward.
Sir, thank you very much. Also wanted to mention too, on the last one, y'all just discussed that there's an overall reduction in the total number of single-family residential in that development due to the fact that they've removed a component that was attached single-family residential townhouses and completely reconfigured that into individual lot homes. So we actually have a reduction in the number of homes and the elimination of the commercial component.
Have they
Yeah, thank
proposed the
you.
price point? I'm guessing 150 up, thousand.
Price-wise, I'm not sure. I think they're going to be just up under 200. But
Ms. Malcolm, I can address that. I went to the P&Z hearing on it. They're saying 200, low 200s.
Okay.
And believe me, I'm going to have some questions next week about some of that.
Didn't mean to stir up the hornet's nest, but going back to 600 South Broad Street, yeah, they're requesting the overturning of the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of their COA request. The way they presented their request originally, it was not conforming to the corridor design overlay standards whatsoever, and it was a gravel parking lot rather than paved. And it exceeded the amount or the size of a gravel parking lot significantly. Didn't have any interspersed landscaping or anything like that. After the vote was taken, they were willing to offer some concessions, but they hadn't. So they were kind of stuck in the water with having already made the vote. They couldn't reconsider the motion, so now they've amended what they want to do to present to you in requesting you to overturn the decision of Planning and Zoning Commission. To be perfectly honest, at this point, looking at it, I don't know that we have any real corridor design overlay concerns. If Mr. Stone agrees with that, he can pipe up, but that's what our discussions have been thus far, is that they've got it almost completely in compliance with the overlay district, and it wouldn't be a detriment.
Would like to interject too, that if you look at the grading plan, the parking lot's roughly 10 foot below the main South Broad Road. In addition, they've put the landscaping in, not only to screen the parking lot from the road, but also in the parking lot itself. So they're pushing around 23% landscaped in the parking lot to break up the asphalt. It's really not that big of a parking lot. It's 40 spaces, which could have been 55 spaces had they not putting the islands in and break that up.
You're saying if this had been presented this way initially, the recommendation from staff would have been to approve?
Yes, because almost every objection is addressed by what they've submitted at this time.
What was not addressed? What objections were not addressed?
The only one is the large parking area adjacent to the corridor roadways, thoroughfares. But like Darrell said, they've addressed the concern that usually presents with the appearance of that large expanse of asphalt through mitigation by landscape.
And islands and that sort of thing.
Yes, islands and irrigation, the whole 9 yards.
Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? Thank you, Patrick. Moving to appointments of the Downtown Development Authority and Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Crosick.
This would just be the reappointment of 3 board members that have currently served their full terms. This should be reappointed. They all
Okay.
wish to continue serving.
Charles Sanders, Meredith Malcolm,
Mike Gray.
Mike Gray. Okay, thank you. Intergovernmental agreement for indigent defense representation, Mr. Probst.
Yes, we've got an agreement here with the Alcovey Judicial Circuit Public Defender's Office for only $300 a month to increase the capacity of our indigent defense in our municipal court. I think this is a win-win situation all the way around. Ensures that we have adequate indigent defense, and it's being handled by the Public Defender's Office, so we know we're going to have a stable source of indigent defense when we hold our court dates. The price is reasonable to me and is included in the 2019 budget when this would take effect.
Do they actually attend each court session
Yes. Yeah, they'll be here in our municipal court.
for $300 a month?
Yes.
Just clarification, they'll be at one session a month. So we have 2 arraignment calendars per month and 2 trial/probation calendars per month. So essentially, we have court 4 times a month, and the agreement is that they would come to 1 arraignment calendar and 1 trial calendar per month. So on the days that they are not there, any indigent defense appointment cases could be continued to that. But it will essentially result in roughly 24 appearances twice a month. It's a great move for our court system to help out.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Any comments? We'll bring that up next week. Moving to authorizing the Urban Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Probst.
All right, before you, we have an authorization to create an urban redevelopment agency for the city of Monroe, and that agency will exercise powers under the urban redevelopment law of the state of Georgia. So what that means is that we're going to apply this to the DDA, same body that also serves as CVB. And what this agency will do is allow us a conduit to get extra development deals done in town. It's kind of like a redevelopment authority, so to speak, but it's not exactly called that. The application here, in our case, is to assist us with the Walton Plaza redevelopment area and financing structure on that deal. At the same time, their involvement will be huge in selling the existing police station, which is in the downtown boundaries. So this is a huge win for the DDA and for the city by really partnering together as an urban redevelopment agency. And I'll also defer to Mr. Rosenthal should he have anything extra to add on this.
I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council may have, but this is creating an agency that's already authorized by law for you. And this is my fault. I should have looked at the agenda a little closer. You'll actually have 2 resolutions to consider next week. One will be actually authorizing the Urban Redevelopment Agency, but the other will be to approve an amendment to the Urban Redevelopment Plan, which is what we have a public hearing on here in a little bit. So there'll be 2 resolutions for you to consider. But I will give a little bit of background to this. For those of you that were on council back in 2008, we created the Opportunity Zone. We created the redevelopment plan back in, I think it started before that, but the most recent update was 2008. And and some action has occurred to promote that and to reap the benefits of it. But from our perspective, my perspective, this is one of the first big steps of actually capitalizing on some of the value of having a redevelopment plan, allowing these financing mechanisms. And the first one, which is what the plan amendment is about, that Mr. Probst will bring up for this public hearing, is to be able to have a funding source for this, the Walton Plaza, the police department relocation. So I'll answer any questions you have, but the way it is structured, so we don't have to create another board, is to appoint the DDA members just in the exact same way that we have the DDA members serving as CVB members for that board as well. We don't anticipate that they would hold regular meetings. They would hold them on an as-needed basis and a minimum of once a year, meaning once a year, the DDA would convene as the urban redevelopment agency, should there be any business that needs to be conducted for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions or any comments? Hearing none, we're going to move forward to the resolution of the adoption of the language access plan. Mr. Probst.
Before you is a resolution concerning the language access plan for limited English-speaking persons. This has to do with compliance with our CDBG funding for the 2018 award. And we're simply asking that we adopt this resolution, that we will abide by these policies for limited English-speaking persons. Have that alternative present.
Are there any questions or comments?
I have one question on the page 5 of the thing. When it talks about number of residents over 5 years of age, and it says there are 18,643. I guess my question is, where are they located? I don't think there's that many in the city yet, so.
State documents. So, yeah, it may be based on some other estimates. I will follow up with DCA on that, where that derivative came from.
Maybe we have 18,000 citizens over 5 years of age. I just didn't
I
realize.
think our estimate of the next census has us still under 15,000, so.
It has, see appendix 3 of this plan for Allison.
We'll get some clarification by next week on that, Mr. Bradley.
That's all I'm just.
So other than our numbers, are there any other questions or comments for Logan? Moving forward to the adopting the 2019 council meeting schedule, and also you're going to go ahead and discuss next month.
Right. So before you is the proposed 2019 meeting calendar, and you'll notice that the first Tuesday falls on New Year's Day, January 1st. So we're proposing to back that up, as has been done in years past, to January 8th, and then the subsequent council meeting on January 15th. One meeting in July is slated for the 2nd.
Anybody have any questions?
I'm not going to I try not to be picky again, but on the regular meetings, June and July are swapped there, and I'm assuming the dates are still okay, but it's like May, July, June.
July 2nd and June 11th? We'll get that fixed for next week. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we do have a public hearing on our budget for 2019, all funds. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the culmination of a lot of hard work by the finance staff and department directors to put this FY 2019 budget together. I'll just hit a couple highlights here. The total 2019 general fund budget is $11,807,632 as proposed, which represents only a 2.79% increase over 2018. And again, this was with the full rollback rate that we did earlier this summer of 7.277 mils. I think we were the only government entity in the county that did a full rollback. Total combined utilities budget is $39,868,121, which represents a 3.26% increase over 2018. And the enterprise fund budget for solid waste contains an increase of about 4.28%. And really, those utilities and enterprise fund budgets are functions of just more volume and more customers. That's the net result there. Total funds citywide increased 3.61% to a total proposed budget of $59,456,052. This budget was very conservative in what we did with personnel. We're only adding one new full-time position citywide and converting one part-time position to full-time. So we're trying to be conservative with what we have. I think we have a lot of great employees and they do a lot of good work, but I don't really want to add to that level unless we really have to. Of course, we decided at our budget meeting we would take a mid-year review in the police department to see how funding was going, so that if we could add some more officers, we will do that at that time. I'll turn it over to Beth if she has anything else to add, but those are the nuts and bolts numbers in the overview there.
Yes, this is pretty much what was brought to you at the budget meetings with just some slight differences that I had pointed out in an email to you, but that we added back from the proposed budget that was presented to you. So there was really not a whole lot of differential there. But if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them.
Anybody have any questions or comments? This has been a lot of hard work for Beth and Logan, and I appreciate all the department heads and your planning and your ability to get it done over the last several months and put it in such an organized format. And look, I know it's a lot of work. I also want to go ahead and go on record and say public safety, obviously the number one most important issue facing us for the long term. So we definitely need to keep in mind over the next 12 months, maybe 6, but over the next 12 months, RV, we're understanding that you're going to need some more help with your guys. So just know that budget's going to change a little bit next year. Now, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the budget? Hearing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting closed. There's no action taken at this time and will be on the agenda for next week. Opening now the public hearing, Urban Development Plan Amendment, referring this to Logan.
All right, this kind of dovetails with what we discussed earlier regarding the Urban Redevelopment Agency. So back in 2008, we had a redevelopment plan put in place, of which was kind of the master plan document, getting a lot of our projects going off the ground, maybe funded through some federal funds in particular, such as the South Broad TE Streetscape, North Broad LCI Streetscape, and several other things that we've put into motion over the last few years. Now we need to expand that, or staff is recommending we expand that to cover a little bit more than just our downtown core. And that will include Walton Plaza Shopping Center element, as well as that area around Blaine Street. So the amendments are here before you, under 6.3.1. You'll see some of those noted here. Large portions of the old Monroe Area High School parcel located off North Hammond Drive and Blaine Street, the old Blaine Street Elementary School campus. Off Blaine Street, the old National Bank of Walton County branch off East Spring Street, the old Walton Plaza Shopping Center off Blaine Street, the old Piggly Wiggly Shopping Center off East Spring Street, and the old DFAX building off East Spring Street. Of course, the Piggly Wiggly was recently done, but we wanted to include that property in this plan. So what we're essentially asking for is to hold a public hearing in order to comply with an amendment of this redevelopment plan for 2018.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Probst? Hearing none, I'll declare this portion of the meeting open. Do we have any public comments, questions, input in favor of this amendment? Hearing none, do I have any who are opposed? Again, hearing none, we'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and that will be on the schedule for next week. There'll be no action taken. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. It's a pretty good meeting. Need the motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bradley, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Good night, everybody.